Welcome back to the Start Smart episode, where I interview founders, innovators, and business professionals to prepare and inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs and leaders. Today, we have two special founders here with us today, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Hello, everyone. Today, I'm joined with Sid Balaga and Suraj Paramani. They're the co-founders of The Fourth Quarter, which is a newsletter and media platform that focuses on the business of sports entertainment. So, Sid and Suraj, for the people that don't know you guys, could you guys give a brief introduction of yourselves, please?
Sure. I can kick us off, Suraj. Suraj and I are actually childhood best friends. We live a few houses down from each other. And now, full circle, we are co-founders on a new media company and platform. So, yeah, we've known each other for a while. Like the conversations and the debates that we have on a daily basis now are nothing compared to all the fights and stuff we endured growing up together. So, yeah, I definitely think the co-founder bond is strong. Quick TLDR on myself. I have been a professional in the sports industry, mostly sports tech. Was most previously at Fanatics in New York City, building out the consumer mobile app from 0 to 1. And prior to that, I was a venture investor investing in early stage startups in the sports media, gaming, entertainment spaces. And before that was a founder and have had some experiences in early stage startups, including Prize Picks and a B2B AI company called Infinite Athlete. But yeah, my background is mostly on the tech, operating, product side, and Suraj actually complements really well, which I'll let him kind of explain.
Yeah. So Rex, I don't know if you know this, but Sid actually lives a few doors down from me and he's a couple years older. So like a year and a half. And so he actually was at my baby shower, crazy or not. But so a
I
little
don't
bit
remember
background
it though.
Yeah, he was probably in a stroller. So
Also, you guys are
but
really
there's a picture floating around
Yeah.
somewhere in one of our photo books or something, photo albums. But so my background is a little bit different from Sid's. You know, I was mainly focused on the finance side of things, even in college and then in my career. Most of my like internship experience was in investment banking or private equity. Actually, most of my work outside of, now starting the fourth quarter was investment banking. So I worked at Bank of America. A lot of the work that I did was with private equity firms. And actually what was super interesting was that private equity started to focus a lot on the media entertainment side, especially at the time that I was working. And so my investment banking internship, I got to participate in or be a part of a very interesting deal, which was Artemis Group, Francis Binault's private equity firm. He owns Kering, which owns Gucci and Balenciaga. He decided to buy CAA, Creative Artist Agency, for $7 billion. At Bank of America, we did a lot of the book running, right? So actually helping syndicate the debt to have these private equity firms buy these companies. And so that was my first real exposure into the sports entertainment space. CAA Sports is one of the biggest sports agencies in the world. It's also a fantastic business, definitely worth, looking into. But I was really fascinated by that. And I always had this finance, acumen, wanted to continue to study, companies in that lens, but I wanted to focus on sports entertainment. So Sid and I obviously came together and we're building this out. And it's really interesting how how we complement each other, because Sid has always been on the very strategy and, product side of things. And I've always been on like the valuation side of things. And so it's interesting how that has come together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I know you guys had like stable jobs beforehand before coming to build the fourth quarter. What made you guys take that leap from that stable job to building something new? And what keeps you guys motivated in times of uncertainty? Because I know there's definitely times where you're like, is this going to work out? Just having doubt, how do you manage doubt?
Suraj, I'll let you answer this question. And before that, I think it would be good if I provided some context, Rex, of like what the fourth quarter is. So the fourth quarter, Suraj and I started writing this newsletter about almost 2 years ago now. So coming up on 2 years. Essentially what we saw was our Suraj and I's goal was for us to eventually start a fund together to buy professional sports teams. That was like this moonshot goal of ours, like 15, 20, 30 years down the line. And we clearly were like, okay, I don't want to wait that long to like work together. Can we do something now? And we saw this like big opportunity in the sports business landscape, right? So one, sports business was super like non-talked about for some reason. Like there was not a go-to publication on TV or go-to podcast or media network that was covering it. Most of the content was written and you had to be subscribed to 5 or 6 different publications to understand the full picture of what was happening on a daily or weekly basis. In addition to that, you had to pay. And then also, there's nothing wrong with this, but all of the articles and stuff that was coming out were journalistic headlines. They weren't analyst coverage, right? which makes sense. Historically, the sports industry has been, family run businesses, wealthy families owning professional sports teams. It was like a family heirloom and passing it down generation. There wasn't a need to innovate financially or a need to innovate technically. So it didn't really attract private, investors or private capital, I guess, institutionally, or, bleeding edge tech coming to innovate in the space. And that has been changing, right? There's been a lax of rules, have allowed private equity and private institutional groups coming in to buy stakes in teams. These valuations of teams are hitting, multi billions of dollars every year. They keep increasing, right? So the pool of people that can even buy, individuals and families that can even buy these teams, are getting smaller. So we saw an opportunity to basically be the go-to spot to cover the business of sports and entertainment, and specifically from analyst coverage, right? So as private equity shops, as investment banks start doing more deals in the space, can they rely on an external third party source where they're staying smart on the space? Is there a way to keep all the industry executives and elites smart on the space? So slowly we started building a following. It started off with aggregating news. So we would scrape all the data and put it together. And then eventually we started adding our analysis on it. So for example, if there was a ticketing company that raised, $7 million. Suraj and I would dissect that. We'd dissect the market, dissect the products. Why would another ticketing competitor even need to come up, right? Who backed it? Why would they back it? And we started off gaining a small but mighty following of early stage investors in our space. And the biggest thing was that we stayed consistent. We were literally putting it out week after week between our full-time jobs. And eventually we got to the growth investors and then private equity folks. And then it kind of branched off into two really unique things. One, we were starting to garner a lot of the professional team and league executives. And, that was kind of one spot. And then the other was we were starting to get some team owners, which is really cool. And that was, I think, a big catalyst of okay, we have content market fit, product market fit. Now it's figuring out who exactly and how exactly we kind of build this out and monetize this. But I think that kind of laid the groundwork for us to leave our full-time jobs. But I don't know, Suraj, you should paint in the other half.
Yeah, I'll echo what Sid said. So one, I think Sid hit the nail on the head here on why we're actually building this. I think also one thing that's really important about the sports and entertainment landscape overall is that it's very nascent, right? While there's a lot of private equity firms coming into the space and they're investing $billion of capitals in teams and leagues, we see sports and entertainment as much greater than leagues and teams. There's a lot of new adjacent companies that are building in the sports space. And one thing that's really interesting is tech is almost a horizontal industry where there's industrials companies that are building tech products, right? Or healthcare companies building tech products. It's the same thing with sports, right? There's media companies building sports specific products, right? Same with healthcare. And same with technology as well. And so what we originally found was that sports tech was super interesting because there's a lot of money going into it, but there was basically zero coverage on the space. So that's where we started, right? But at the same time, Sid and I have, really good understanding of the financial side of things. And now there's private equity firms that aren't even just buying teams and leagues. They're buying these adjacent companies as well. So what we're seeing is that the industry is essentially growing so fast right now, which makes sense for us to jump in and really build in the media landscape because there's no one covering all of it in an analytic lens, right? Through really deep analysis. If you look at most of the media landscape in sports in general, right? You have the sports business journals of the world, Sportico, Front Office Sports, which do a lot of great things for the sports space because they're the ones who are breaking news. They're essentially the journalism that sports business needs, right? But there is no real analyst coverage, right? I worked at a bank, right? There would be a ton of reports on AI, B2B SaaS, right? Pharmaceuticals, even gaming, right? And media as well. But there was never a sports specific coverage, right? Within my bank and within a lot of banks. Now it's starting to pop up, but it's still very new, right? So I think there's a real opportunity for us to bring that lens. And I also think that, being in a position where we can try a lot of different things, while most of the sports journalism companies have existed for a while and have kind of understood this is the position that they want to be in, we can help disrupt that and do something new. And I think that opportunity is, we don't want to just like give that away just to continue our corporate jobs. I think it's the perfect time to take that big swing.
Right.
And Rex, one last thing is like, honestly, everyone has asked like, how hard was it to like quit your full-time jobs.
Mhm.
I can't speak for Suraj. I think it was kind of mutual, but it was pretty easy. Like, I mean, I knew when you're a builder and you like want to do something 0 to 1 and you are in situations where you can't like exhibit your full self, I think either through, an extracurricular activity or through your just full-time job in itself, you will find ways to like emerge and try to be your like, best self to go be a builder or whatever. Right. And yeah, for us, like it was when the opportunity emerged and we had, one of the leading VCs in sports and entertainment, Courtside Ventures, offer to build this, incubate us and build this with us and build this into the next big sports media company. We thought, we're young, we're in our early 20s, like this is like the dream opportunity. So yeah, it was, I think like for anybody listening, for young people watching or listening, like the, like 100% take swings, like swing for the fences, life's short, like you have goals. You shouldn't want to be like, you're not, trying to build it for your, trying to build your life to your own goal. You're going to definitely start building it to somebody else's goal. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I had one guest on when I asked him what young people that might want to take that leap should do, he said, just do it. There should be nothing stopping you. Like you learn by doing. I think that was the main thing. But
Yeah,
yeah.
you learn by doing. And then, sorry, Rex, I didn't mean to
Yeah,
cut you
no,
off,
no,
but
go.
like also it's like daily input, right? Some people think that like it needs to like take off the next day. And then like if it doesn't take off, then like, oh, why is it worth putting in another day? There's actually only 2 inputs. You just have to start and then you just have to start doing it every day. And if you're consistent, like, I mean, the stories with, Jimmy from, Mr. Beast, like all of that stuff is like, nobody's watching for so long or paying attention. And then the daily inputs, each, posts on social media or thing that you're putting your voice out on the internet is a lottery ticket that somebody is going to find it and share it, or the right person's going to read it or listen to it and view it. So yeah, that's what I think, that's the ideology that Suraj and I have been like trying to do, like taking it day at a time. And
Yeah.
that's what we would say.
And I want to echo on what Sid just said. I think that's like a really interesting misconception that a lot of people have just because they see, oh, there's this new tech startup that's doing 100 million ARR in a year, right? Or like just making $100 million in a year, right? Since they started, right? Obviously, like a lot of new companies are popping up like that with AI and how fast it's being adopted. But I think in general, most of the greatest companies in the world, it took a long time to get to where they are, right? It's not just going to be this immediate skyrocket jump, right? That you're seeing a lot of companies do. And I think that's honestly discouraging for a lot of new entrepreneurs who are like, hey, I'm not hitting that metric, right? I'm not hitting 1 million in a year, right? That's what I thought the expectations were. And then they quit, right? I don't think that's the right way to look at it. Actually, there's a great quote by Jensen Huang. He said this a long time ago, but he was like, I don't need to change the world in a year, but in 20 years, I think that's where I'll change the world. And that honestly is kind of exactly what happened. And so I think that's something that people should keep in the back of their mind. If they genuinely believe that this has a real impact on their industry, on the world itself, how grand the cause is, I think keep working at it, right?
Yeah,
like
just stay consistent.
yes, like the metrics will hit if you truly believe it and there's real conviction. And there's like an understanding that like you've done the research, you understand that like, I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm doing, and I believe I can make it happen. So 100% agree with Sid on that point.
Cool. Absolutely. Yeah. So with the fourth quarter, what were some ways that you gained your audience early on, and what are some ways that right now you're trying to scale the fourth quarter?
Sid, you want to take this one?
Sure. I was going to let you take it without vocalizing that you should take it. Yeah. Suraj, maybe I can talk about how we first initially grew, and then you can talk about maybe how we're growing now. But
yeah,
Rex, how we originally started was I worked in the sports venture space, and Suraj had this finance kind of network, right? Banking network, private equity network. So we originally like started doing this and we sent it to people in our network, and not everybody subscribed at first. Some people were just like, congrats. And like, what? I was like, huh, I sent it to you assuming that you would subscribe. But LinkedIn was kind of our big like X factor at first. I know there's a lot of discourse around LinkedIn being cringe and making all these different like posts and whatnot. So I don't know. I have differing thoughts, but what worked for us at the beginning was LinkedIn. We officially announced to the world there, or at least our respective networks, that we were working on this cool thing. And it also made us accountable. Like, okay, so people now are, we launched something to the world. Now we have to start. We said it was going to be a weekly newsletter. Let's make sure it's weekly. So we started doing that. And it was basically just cold outbound to our networks of like, hey, we did this, we'd love for you to sign up. LinkedIn, and every time we wrote an article, we would post it on LinkedIn. So it's like every weekly, it was kind of like a reason for us to post every week. And then we also like, it wasn't, like super fleshed out, but we tried to do some social media stuff, which now, Suraj can speak on of like what we're growing to, but that was like the initial groundwork. It's mostly like LinkedIn and some cold outbound.
Yeah. So I can touch a little bit about how we're growing right now. We're trying out social media in a more unique way and nuanced way than we did before. What we did before, we would just cover like the news of what's going on. And it was a little bit tougher because Sid and I were, coast to coast. I was in San Francisco, Sid was in New York City. So like you'd hop on a Zoom call and record it and then clip it up and post it on TikTok or Instagram. And to be honest, it doesn't get that much traction if it's like, purely like just you two like face like Zoom calling or like on a Google Meets call. I actually, Rex, I know that some of your podcasts have been in person. This is your first video one, right?
Yeah.
So keep doing the in-person one, honestly. Like those are really great and they're just like, valuable to have. And so now that Sid and I are, both in the same office together, right? A lot of the content that we can film is a lot more creative, a lot more innovative. And what we found through TikTok and Instagram, posting consistently, providing value, whether it's like, covering the news, but in a very very authentic way. We found that like most of the news that you just scroll through on TikTok, it's like someone who's like talking at you, not like, trying to talk with you, almost like it's a reporter on CNN who's telling you the news. Yeah. We're trying to stay as far away from that. But we just get to do a lot of creative things now that we're in person. And we found a lot of traction actually on Instagram and TikTok. What's super interesting is that, we found that our subscriber base on the newsletter is, the cream of the crop of sports entertainment, right? Sid mentioned that's league and, league executives, team owners, investors that are leading funds, athlete investors as well, founders. What we also, are trying to bring in are a lot of the professionals too, right? Like we still want them to be educated on what's going on in the sports business space. And so usually you would think that on TikTok or Instagram, the people that are viewing your content might just be like, high schoolers who are just randomly coming across it. Maybe they're interested in sports because like they love their, local football team, right? But what we found is that it's actually professionals who are trying to break into sports. That's who we're targeting. And that's who we're getting viewing our, our content because it's just so targeted now with social media. It's crazy. And so we found just a lot of like professionals in sports, a lot of college kids who are trying to break into sports, subscribing to our newsletter, sharing it, engaging with us. And so I think that's a great way to grow as well, right? Like we're always going to be, targeting, the people that are moving the needle in sports, but it's really important for us to engage not only the youth, but also people who are, maybe they've been doing investment banking for 4 to 5 years and they now want to break into sports. We want to be as helpful to them as we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I saw a few videos on your Instagram actually. Yeah, I think it's definitely great to not just be like a boring old like news post, but rather actually having like a nuanced view. And like, yeah, I think a lot of social media creators, that's the way that they get big is first being like consistent, but also having something that's actually interesting that people actually want to hear for sure.
Rex, you're a part of this, even younger generation. I don't want to like age ourselves. I think Suraj and I are still young, but from the content you've seen on our Instagram and TikTok, what do you think we could do better? What do you think is working?
I think it's pretty good, but I'm not sure. Like a lot of it depends, like the audience that you're trying to reach. I think if you're trying to reach like high schoolers, and then you probably want to take like a more like a meme route or like a more funny route. But I think the content is good for the audience of like maybe like professionals, but also people that want to break into like sports, entertainment, and like tech.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Should we do
Rex,
more?
are you calling this not funny? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's funny. I'm just saying maybe.
Yeah, I'm joking.
Yeah.
Rex, should we do more founder-led content and like telling more about the story? Like, is that something that you think would appeal to the younger generation or no?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. For sure. I mean, like for like a student like myself who's trying to like explore different fields, I think it will be definitely very, very interesting, even in like college students for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Noted.
Mhm.
We should go back to the drawing board on that.
No,
Yeah, 100%.
it's good. It's good. Absolutely. I like it. But yeah, I just wanted to, I know you guys are based in New York City, right? I think I talked to Siraj a bit before personally, but what made you guys choose New York City as a headquarters? And how important do you think the space that you're working in is on your company?
Suraj, you take this one.
Yeah, I'll take this one just because, Sid starting off his career was in New York City. I have a little bit of a different perspective because I lived in San Francisco for a year while I was doing investment banking at B of A. So, one thing, look, I think San Francisco is a great city, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to the sports entertainment space, there's not that much going on compared to New York or LA, right? Like, obviously, you have amazing franchises like the Niners and Warriors, right? But actual building in sports entertainment is in New York City or LA, primarily actually New York City. So that's one reason why we wanted to be, in the mix there. I think also just like the density of people in New York, and Rex, we were talking about this, SF's great if you're in tech, right? Tech or maybe like, tech finance, because there's a lot of people that are in tech and tech finance, right? But comparatively in New York City, right, there's just so many more professionals, especially in the sports entertainment space. And what we've also found is that, like I said, sports is a horizontal category, right? And so you want to be, connected with people in fashion and retail, people in marketing, people in advertising, right? These are potential business partners. These are potentially people that can connect you to someone that's going to create new business, maybe new products down the line, right? There's also tech, there's also finance, right? Like that being able to be connected in all those different sectors of the market is such a value add to us, especially being in the media space, right? Like if we're going to be out, out in the open, putting out content, it's important to be around the people that can help facilitate that content, right? Like a lot of the work that we do is collaborative, right? That's the essence of media. And I think in New York City, it's the best place to do it compared to New York City or compared to SF. I think LA is definitely like a great spot as well, especially from the media side. But the media hub is New York City. Also, Sid and I are from the East Coast. It was tough on me, especially to like fly back home and like see my family. And I think it's super important that we, consider that aspect as well, especially if you're from the East Coast going to the West Coast, or if you're from the West Coast going to the East Coast, right? Like if you talk to someone who was born and raised in SF or LA, they would say a lot of things differently than I do. But, there is a bias to just being on the East Coast as well.
Yeah. And then Rex, to put a, cherry on that, like the biggest thing that I've seen is, based off the point that Suraj made of like the density of people, is that when you meet somebody or you connect with them on LinkedIn or whatever, you mutually connected through, somebody, I think our gut instinct now that we're in New York is like, all right, let's meet for a coffee rather than like a Zoom or, phone call. Obviously we still have those. It's, even if both parties are in New York City, but there's so many coffee shops. That's one thing that I realized. First of all, I don't even know how all of them stay in business because they're like, there's like literally 2 a block probably, but it's so convenient to just meet somebody for a coffee. It's just like you're meeting them in person, especially in this post-COVID, post-Zoom, maybe I guess post-remote work era. There's a lack of like connectivity. And I think people are craving that of like the in-person, connection, human connection that I think can really play to your to your favor if you are, I don't know, if you are like wanting to build a relationship and like a coffee is, especially like New York just makes it super accessible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Rex, I wanted to say one last thing. And I think sports is highly relationship driven. Sid and I talk about this all the time. And so that's why the coffee is just so much better than a Zoom call.
Right.
You just build like genuine connections that grow down the line. And it's a lot more accelerated if it starts in person, right? If you've only, really talked to them on the phone, like you don't really know who they are. Sports is also based on just personalities as well. And so that's why the coffee chat is the ultimate weapon in the sports entertainment space.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I actually went to New York a few months ago and I was going on a tour of the financial district in Wall Street. And I was just wondering like, why all these like companies, they're so close to each other, like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, all these big companies are all side to side. And I realized it's because like it's so convenient for them to make deals with, like there's so many places to chat like within that area. Like instead of having to say like having a Zoom call, like you said, you can just be like, hey, meet me down on like whatever street and we can just chat and boom, deal is done. I think that's very interesting for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So this is an interesting question. If you guys were back in like high school, like how I am now, what would you do anything like differently to get to where you are now? Or yeah, what advice would you have to like high school students?
So I can start with this. So I actually turned down a couple full-time offers after graduating from undergrad to build a ed tech startup focused on helping early career talent land internships and jobs. So I spent a lot of time. I was always very like thinking about my career. I didn't know all the answers, but I was like, I've always put an emphasis on it, even when I was your age and just young. And I think a lot of people don't do that. It's like the first thing is just like, think about what you want to do. And it shouldn't be like daunting or like, you shouldn't feel behind or ahead. You should just think about like what you want. If you don't know what you want, you're going to end up doing something that, somebody else thinks that you should do. And like, that's the worst thing that's possible. So one, I think is just for anybody just thinking about careers, just like start thinking about it. And like, you don't have to be right. You can switch it 10 different times if you wanted to, but like, think of an industry or sector that you're interested in. What are the different types of jobs there? What motivates you? Is it money? Is it like helping people? Like, I think there's a bunch of questions you can ask yourself to figure out what is your, like it gives you some clarity, I guess, or some kind of path to go towards. What I would do personally, if I was, your age again, was, I mean, I knew I wanted to build companies, I guess, and like be a leader. I didn't come to that exact conclusion until I was like later in my college career, where I had like startup incubators and accelerators and people and co-founders and all this stuff around me. I would 100% do what you're doing. Like one easy thing is like just start, like I'm saying specifically for this like tech world, I guess, and startup scene, like start putting stuff out there. You don't even have to build anything. If it's a podcast and you just want to invite cool people on and you're growing your network and you're getting to learn through conversations, like do that. If it's a newsletter, go do that. If it's making a TikTok of like, there's this little kid, he looks like he's 13, maybe. I forgot his name, but he just makes TikToks on like stock picks. And he has like hundreds of thousands of followers. He's working with a bunch of financial institutions now because he's a creator. It's crazy. He clearly is super passionate about the subject of like stocks, fundamental analysis, technical analysis, finance, the markets. Like that's, if you have some inkling, like try to explore it outside of school. I would also say if you're interested in like building startups specifically, play around with all the different AI tools, start building stuff, like start shipping stuff, and then find people that are also doing that near you and like team up with them and like launch something. Maybe launch something that your school can use, right? That's helpful for your school or whatever. If there's like a local business that if one of your parents or family friends or whatever is a dentist, right? And they own a dental practice, like, are there potential tech solutions that you can build for them? And right, there's like cool ways that like now the cost of creation of tech and writing code is just literally zero because you have all of these, AI agents and just this AI assistant stuff to help you code. Even if you're not a super technical person, I would like really like focus on building the technical acumen and design. So like playing around in Figma and, Adobe and whatnot. But that's what I would do if I were your age.
That's great.
Yeah, I agree with like almost everything Sid said. I definitely think that high school, and I want to loop in college as well, because I think it's kind of a similar atmosphere than you would think. But I think what's so interesting about high school and college is that you have the highest density of intellectually curious people where you don't have any commitments, any work commitments. It's not like, hey, like I have to get this job done, otherwise I might get fired, right? And that's like your primary focus. Obviously that's a form of learning, but genuine collaboration with intellectually curious people is the best way to stimulate your growth, right? When it comes to whether like you want to, pursue a career in academia and you want to become a PhD in physics, right? Like obviously like great place to start is high school because there's probably a bunch of other people who are just as interested in physics as you, have different perspectives, and that's where you learn, right? At the same time with startups, right? If people are building around you, teaming up is the best way to go about things, right? And learning from them, from their prior business experience. Because I see high school students who are now applying to Y Combinator. It's like crazy. The acceleration is so fast because you can consume a lot more knowledge because of LLMs like, ChatGPT or Gemini, right? Like all of this information is at your fingertips. And I think with these tools as well, you can start shipping products if you truly believe that this is something that you can do. And it's honestly like the learning curve has definitely flattened, right? Where it's like, hey, like anyone can really be a coder this early on, right? It almost felt like you had to take like AP Comp Sci or right as their AP Comp Sci principles, like just get into coding. Like that's completely false, right? Especially now. But I think that goes the same with college as well, right? It's like be around people, collaborate. If there's something that's interesting to you, go into a rabbit hole, into just that one thing, really explore it and find people who are also exploring it as well. that's how a lot of these. So I was actually reading an interesting article about like traders on these prediction markets. There's a bunch of college students who are like second years who are in love with trading, started learning about it probably in high school, went to college. They're like, hey, like I want to do this. They've now found this new nation thing of prediction markets to play around with because no one else really is, right? And they just found a group of friends or like newfound friends that were like, hey, we're interested in this too. Let's pull some money together and actually build out a shop. And they're now trading like out of like this like mini office, like right outside their campus that they're renting out. And they're making a ton of money. And like that opportunity kind of really only exists in high school or college. Because it's like, yeah, you have classes, but like you're not going to work that consumes 70, 80 hours of your week, right? Like that was what the case was for my investment banking job. That's what made doing the fourth quarter on the side really tough, actually. It was because like, oh, I have this investment banking commitment that I have to do to like pay the bills, right? But at the same time, my true passion was the fourth quarter. And it was kind of annoying that I was like, this is something that I'm doing on the side, right? Like you don't have those problems in high school or college. So really take advantage of that and find the best ways to collaborate. Like you're not going to learn just by sitting by yourself, reading a bunch of books, which obviously you can learn a ton from, but find the people around you who are just as intellectually curious about the same topics as you is the best way to go, and do it now, honestly.
So, Rex, are they teaching AI stuff in school, like in your classes?
No, not really. I think it's mainly just teachers saying not to use AI.
Got it. Got it.
Don't use AI for like your homework and stuff. Like I would probably say not to, because at least if you're trying to learn like a lot of these like basics as well, like you should just learn it. But on the other side, from just like outside of school, that's where you should just like absolutely use AI to its maximum potential.
Are you guys using like AI software right now?
Yeah. So for our work for the fourth quarter, most of it is on the research front. So it like reduces the time that we need to research maybe into like a third. And it's a lot of prompting. So we get really good at prompt engineering. But yeah, we're not using like cursor or like writing code with AI just yet. Like we don't need to. I think in the future we will start building, when we start building out tech products, we will. I don't know. What else do we use for Claude? We use some AI, retrieval knowledge software. And we are trying to stay away from AI like writing. Because I think that's like we see in our sector, at least, a bunch of AI slop. But yeah.
Makes it not very authentic.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. And like, we want to make sure we maintain that authenticity because like AI writing is not nearly as good enough as you think. Like you can tell it's slop. Like there's like this one classic phrase that once I see it, I know it's AI. If the statement goes, if it's not X, then it's Y, then you know that's AI. If that is a sentence, you know that's AI because it pops up all the time. And like, it's kind of like this weird way of speaking. It almost feels like it's like too logical, right? It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we see it all the time. Obviously, like the classic signs are like a ton of M dashes everywhere, which kind of sucks. I used to use M dashes before AI. Like that was like my style of writing. And now it's just like kind of corrupted in a sense because there's just M dashes everywhere. And so like, you don't want to use M dashes anymore because you don't want to be considered AI slop, even though what you wrote was authentic. But yeah, it's interesting how like writing is like converging into like AI writing, where it's like you can't really like no one has a unique voice anymore, right? And like people want to hear someone's voice. Like people want to hear Sid, or people want to hear Rex, people want to hear me. They don't want to hear some like weird AI overlord, writing a bunch of your stuff. So
absolutely. Yeah, of course. Yeah. One last question for you guys. What's the one last piece of advice that you would give to viewers out there? Maybe it's like the best piece of advice you've ever heard, or it's just something that you guys have been thinking about personally. What's that one piece?
So there was a gentleman named Rashawn Williams. He is a private equity investor, now happens to invest in sports. Read up on his biography, but he owns part of the Atlanta Falcons. And he is now a private equity investor that teamed up with Mark Cuban and invested in a bunch of stuff. He was at in like a culture and sports, media, entertainment, business conference in New York that I actually went and listened to him speak and keynote at earlier this summer. And I was like, he was very well spoken. And then I was like, just Googling him. I was like, while he was up there, and I was like, there was a write-up and it was kind of on his biography. And then there was this question that said basically like what his favorite quote was. So I'm going to read it to you because I wrote it down. It goes, "Far better is it it far better it is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to take rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy much nor suffer much, because they live in the gray twilight that knows not victory nor defeat. Essentially, you need to like embrace the highs, embrace the lows, and like swing for the fences. Don't just play it safe all the time, or else you'll never know what it's like to be at the top of the mountain or the bottom of the hill. So that's what I would say. It's more, I guess it's less tangible advice than it is like some symbolic quote, but
That's good. I like it. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So this is a quote. I think it's a little bit trite now, but there's like this YC interview, or like I think it's like Sam Altman's interviewing Mark Zuckerberg, and he's referring to a quote that Peter Thiel told him. And he's like, it's a very pithy quote, but essentially, in a world that's constantly evolving, not taking any risk is the biggest risk you can take. And so it's a super interesting quote. And I think it applies a lot to like the sports entertainment space. More ironically than not, because like sports is like one of the few things that's like, you know, stood the test of time in a sense. But obviously with like tech and AI, like you want to be building in that space because it's constantly evolving, right? Like you don't want to be left behind being the one who didn't take that risk or didn't take that leap of faith while like maybe your peers did. And obviously I think you need to feel compelled or have a lot of conviction in yourself to do it. But I think in the sports entertainment space, any space that's nascent, right? Which I think is basically every industry, right? Just because of how tech has evolved. But I think it's best to take the swing, right? Because if you don't take that risk, you're not seeing that opportunity of putting yourself out there and trying to build something that you believe is the next step in that industry or in that market. And I think failure, like it's inevitable, right? Like at some point in time, like there will be failures, but I think the learnings that you get, the people that you meet, the opportunities that come about it, whether it's building a new company or working with another startup or another team, there's just that opportunity is just so massive. And I think so powerful that it's just worth taking that swing. Right. And I believe that if, you know, Sid and I have so much conviction in the fourth quarter, like obviously there'll be many failures down the road, but I think this will be an ultimate success. And I think a great value add to this industry, but we're never going to know till we do it. Right. And that's also the reason why we took that swing.
Absolutely.
Well said. Very well said.
Well, yeah, that's all I had for you guys. Thank you guys so much for coming on. You guys gave some great advice, some great insight. Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Cool. Thanks, Rex.
Thanks for having us, Rex.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the episode, please consider subscribing or leaving a like down below. If you want to see more of my journey, please follow my socials, linked also down below. And as always, we're having conversations that build the next generation. Peace.